All right. Somebody recommended this video to me. How Riot destroyed League Classic. So if you don't know what League Classic is, it's essentially just it was a project that was started. The idea of it was to restore some of like the older patches, right? Like so you could play League on some of the goated old patches, and you didn't have to play the current iteration of League. And Riot made sure that this could not exist. They did not want League Classic to actually be a thing. So let's watch this video on how Riot destroyed it.
You might not know that once upon a time, a League Classic server did actually exist. In fact, this footage is from that very server.
Damn.
Over the last few years, classic versions of games have become one of the most
WoW
popular
Classic
ways
obviously
to
is the
breathe
big one.
fresh air of life into a franchise. Video
I love
game
WoW
companies
Classic, man.
Capitalizing on nostalgia, underdog developers fighting against all odds to create incredible projects that turn into official projects down the line. This isn't one of those stories.
They forced ChronoShift to shut down. What's ChronoShift?
ChronoShift was a project made by an independent group of people.
A representative of Riot Games attempted to extort them into handing over the code and the chronoshift.dev website.
God, extort them. You could have just, you know what you could do in situations like this? Why don't you just work with them? Why don't you just work with them, incorporate it, support it to some degree, and then profit from it? Why Riot has this obsession with control, man. Everything is so much about control. From everything they've done in the community to even the esports stuff. The whole reason we don't have an open circuit is because Riot has this necessity to control everything to such a ridiculous degree. And that's why we just don't get as many international tournaments as other games get, because they just want to make sure that they are able to have complete control over everything so they can do great things like grow the LCS. That's the idea, is that if Riot has control of the product, then they can control the destiny of League. And that's why the LCS is thriving right now as we speak.
This is the story of a small group of developers who went to war with Riot Games. This is the story of ChronoShift.
I'm gonna love this video already. I already know. I'm gonna love this video. I'm all about these types of stories.
March 2017. Right in the middle of a market moving rapidly toward a resurgence of classic games, a small group of passionate developers started to work on a secret project. This project was led by a developer called Lethendran. Lethendran, along with his team, only had one goal: create a way for the community to experience the old League of Legends. When you look at the player counts of other classic games versus their retail counterparts, the retail version will almost always have a higher population. Despite this, classic versions of games always feel more popular. If you've noticed this and thought it didn't make any sense, then you wouldn't be alone, but it turns out there actually is a reason behind it. Let's take a look at World of Warcraft, which has one of the biggest classic communities out of any game.
Pretty loud video, but I'm
the
making it a
retail
little bit
player
louder.
base absolutely dwarfs the classic player base, but the classic version of the game has almost always held the crown when it comes to things like viewership on Twitch, YouTube, and other social media.
Yep.
This in turn creates a tight-knit community, which can explain why the game feels more popular even though the raw statistics disagree. Despite a similarly high demand for a classic mode in League, Riot has never officially supported it. So Lethendran and his team made a choice that would change their future forever. They were going to build it themselves. This secret project was codenamed ChronoShift. Their version of the game was going to include old items like Deathfire Grasp and old champions like Poppy and Scion before they got reworked. Specifically, it was going to run on the patch where Xerath was released. This was October 2011, right in the middle of Season 1's end and Season 2's start. As you can imagine, creating a server for a version of League that technically doesn't exist anymore was no simple task. What most people don't know is that at the time, all the building blocks you needed were already available. In fact, Riot were the ones handing them out. Riot used to have a publicly accessible CDN. A CDN, or a content delivery network, is like a worldwide network of storage hubs that keep copies of data, like game files, videos, and images, and this is so that they can be loaded faster from a location closer to you. It wasn't just the latest patch data that was stored on the CDN though, it was every patch that League had ever released. This actually did have a purpose behind it. Sites like the League of Legends wiki used to use this to make sure old data was correct, and modders and content creators could use it for making things like custom skins. When Riot themselves made polls for champion reworks, the old champion models were actually pulled from the CDN. This was good to cover the majority of the assets.
Bro, look at those old items. Look at Phantom Dancer. Look at GA. Man, look at Bloodthirster. Oh, man.
That the ChronoShift team would
the same,
need
but yeah,
for
you get the
development of
point.
their private
Pretty much the
server.
same.
But then of course,
Old DFG. Damn. The nostalgia's too much. I love it too much.
there was still the server part. The ChronoShift team had to rebuild the entire League of Legends server from scratch with no help at all. Aside from the obvious issue of connectivity, this also included all the logic for the game's spells, items, movement, and everything else that came
Didn't
along
people use this to hack the game? Wasn't this how people did all the exploits? Was through the CDN files? I remember something like this.
with it. But as time flowed on, the devs slowly but steadily made progress on their vision. It was right on the cusp of being a playable time capsule, a playable version of a game
Capsule.
seemingly long since forgotten. At this point, the developers could have continued to work in the shadows, and the video would probably end here. But their next move would land them on the radar of some very powerful people, getting their attention and jeopardizing the entire project. A few days later, as Lethendrin left his house, he walked past a small package sitting on the sidewalk. He didn't notice it. This package had a slight glow. The next passerby noticed this unusual glow and picked it up, taking it home. Upon returning home, he opened it up. Inside was a single sheet of paper. The sheet of paper contained a URL. Confused, he went to his PC and navigated to the website. The website contained countless lines of personal information about him, personal address, browsing history, and exposed passwords. It had all been gathered into one location from years of data breaches and data brokers harvesting and selling this information on the black market. But it also had something else. A button to delete all of this information from the internet, to wipe the slate clean once and for all. Today's sponsor, Aura, helps you remove your personal information from
Oh,
the
it's a
internet
sponsor. I was like, what the f?
out of the
All right,
hands
it's
of
a pretty good ad.
hackers and data brokers.
It's a pretty good ad.
It also protects you from future breaches, keeps you safe from spam
I thought that this
calls,
was what Riot
and
was doing to
also
the developer, honestly. Like, when I saw this shit, I'm like, Riot was probably, yeah. No, I could see it.
offers
You
a
get
VPN
a one of these from Mark Merrill.
so you can browse the internet safely. You can try out Aura completely free for
I thought
14
it was right. Yeah,
days
me
by
too. No, I mean, it was completely understandable.
heading to aura.com/Ryskew. By trying it out for yourself, not only are you keeping your personal data safe, but you're also directly supporting the channel. On March 20, 2020, a Reddit user called ChronoShift Dev made a new post titled, "Announcing the ChronoShift project, a way to play old versions of League of Legends." ChronoShift is a work-in-progress server for old versions of League. Supported game clients can connect and talk to the server just like they did when the official servers for those versions were online. This enables players to experience the game as it was at the time. Currently it only works with a specific game client from 2010, but with some effort it can be modified to support other versions from around that time.
Bro, I wonder what patch would be. I mean, I would just like to play all of the patches just for a little bit, you know? Like, it would be so fun to be able to play all the different patches where things are absurdly broken. And then once it becomes cringe, then you stop playing. That was always the problem with League, is that something would be broken. It'd be really fun for like a day. And then other people would, like, everyone would catch on, and then it would just become complete cancer, which we saw multiple times. I mean, we even kind of saw a microcosm of this in the last couple days with Crit Silas. Like, the first time somebody goes Crit Silas and he's just like one-shotting you with Crit, you're like, what the f? This is crazy. But after, 3 days, then it's perma-banned and it's just annoying. It's like, oh man, we didn't ban Silas, so we lose this game, whatever. But there's so many different versions of the game that I would want to play. Like Feral Flare, 2014 Feral Flare, that would be fucking fun.
And further efforts could push the compatibility to slightly newer versions. They had a lot of plans for the server. It was going to include all the champions through to Trundle, so 65 in total, all 14 summoner spells in the game at the time, 5 fully functional maps. This included Summoner's Rift, the Autumn.
Holy shit, wait. You could go Rally? Who remembers? Wait, what were the 14 summoner spells? Wait, hold on. Let me write down the 14 summoner spells. All right. You've got Flash, Ghost. Was Barrier a spell back then? I don't even know if Barrier was a spell. Okay. Flash, Ghost, Heal, Cleanse, Ignite, Exhaust. There was Rally. There was Clairvoyance. Teleport, obviously. There was Surge. Clarity. Maybe Barrier was the thing. Barrier. Fortify. True. And Smite, obviously. Yes, Smite. So probably barrier wasn't there. It was probably, okay, so it was Flash, Ghost, Heal, Cleanse, Ignite, Exhaust, Rally, Clairvoyance, Teleport, Surge, Clarity, Fortify, Smite, and Revive. And that's it. Those are the 14.
And winter
There was no
versions
barrier
of
at
the
the
map,
time, I'm pretty
Twisted
sure.
Tree Line, and the Proving Grounds.
Huge.
Despite the team working on
Promote,
ChronoShift for
I think
multiple
Promote
years
was changed
before
for
this
Surge.
announcement, it wasn't completely finished yet. This is part of the reason that the developers felt forced to post it to the public before it was ready, putting themselves in front of dangerous Riot eyes and dangling the project's future over a chasm of uncertainty.
Yep.
Specifically, they needed some help finishing 3 main parts: Runes and Masteries, Performance, and Pathfinding. The basic pathing that would ignore walls worked fine, but it didn't take into account other units, and sometimes units would go through each other and minions would get stuck in the same spot. This was the most serious issue of the 3. Therefore, a large reason for the team making this post in the first place was to try and gather feedback and find possible testers. After all, they were a pretty small team. Because it wasn't finished yet, the code for the game was also all closed source. In their own words, we hope to eventually open source the project, but first we want to centralize testing and avoid issues with bad actors who may attempt to use our work to enrich themselves or would bring the project into disrepute. There's a good chance you've probably heard these terms, open source and closed source, thrown around before, but let's talk about how they specifically affected ChronoShift. You're probably watching this video on a computer or a laptop, or maybe you're watching this on your phone sitting in the bathroom. Your computer is probably either running Windows or Mac, and maybe your phone is an iPhone that's running iOS. All of these operating systems are closed source, meaning that the companies keep the
It's too
code under
beautiful.
lock and key.
Old
An example of an
Twisted Tree
open
Line, there was
source
something
operating
magical
system
about
would be
this.
Linux. In fact, you can go on GitHub right now and see every single line of code and every single change that was ever made to it, when it was made, and who made it. The advantage to open sourcing fan-built projects like ChronoShift is that anyone can make a fork of the codebase and build upon it themselves. This would have eventually turned ChronoShift into something unstoppable. Even if Riot forced the ChronoShift project to take their code down, it would have just popped up again somewhere else eventually. But it wasn't open source, and as soon as that Reddit post went live, the clock began ticking. In the weeks that
364 days until shutdown. Oh man, why can't we just have nice
followed
things?
this post, countless videos of people playing classic League of Legends began to surface. The version of League that people fell in love with, as unbalanced as it was at the time.
AP Scion, bro. AP Scion with the point and click stun. You know what's so cool about Classic League? Like, if you really wanted to go back, before, Flash used to dodge abilities. So it was like AP Scion was completely broken. He would one-shot you with just his Q and his W. His Q and his W were... his Q was just a point and click stun, targetable stun, and his W was the same ability as it is now, essentially. It just scaled off AP, but it's essentially the same ability as it is now. And the thing that was so cool about Scion is that he was supposed to be a berserker, right? His E and his ult would give you attack speed and lifesteal, so like that was supposed to be the playstyle. But people found out that the AP ratios were completely busted, even though they were only on 2 abilities. And you could use it to essentially become a one-shot assassin with like DFG and stuff like this, death cap, whatever. Fun fact, I actually had an account where I grinded to rank 1 playing AP Scion, and my name was just in Korean, or it was like I randomly put Korean words in my name because I was friends with Korean players, and it was just like me like joking around, and everyone thought I was Korean. So like I had a Scion account where everyone thought I was Korean, and in game people would just talk to me in Korean, and I would just like ignore them because I obviously couldn't read what they wrote. Back to the counterplay, Flash used to be able to dodge point and click projectiles. So like if you got anti-Q'd, you could flash and dodge it as long as you flashed while the projectile was in the air. So it used to be like counterplay to Scion was flashing his Q. If you flash his Q, you could kill him. I thought that was originally some big outplay potential, but yeah, I mean, the game was obviously changed from there.
Some players managed to play more than 150
People
games.
thought I was a Korean Scion one trick. Actually, maybe, I don't even know. I probably didn't hit rank 1 on that guy. I think I was rank 3 or something. I don't want to give false info. I'm pretty sure I'd never hit rank 1 on that account, actually. That was one of the accounts that I just played only AP Scion.
Games in the time it was online, and they shared the insanity of it all, and what it was like to revisit an old version of the game that a lot of people have forgotten
bro, I
about
love
or
that
just
game.
never had the chance to experience.
The game was too fun.
These were some of the conclusions that players came to after revisiting Season 2. This, of course, would only last until Riot made their next move, but let's talk about the good times while they were still possible. Roles were far more defined and served unique purposes. There were fewer jack-of-all-trades type champions. The carries, usually the ADC and the AP
Old
carry
Warwick.
mid, were typically the only damage machines of the team. Bruisers and assassins were a special case. They still had carry potential in the mid-game when they were fed, but they would always fall off as the game progressed. Junglers and supports were lower income, but they were still fun to play because of their unique role in the game. To quote the recap, in ChronoShift you don't show up at level 6 or 7 as a Jarvan or Lee Sin and 100 to 0 some poor guy with red smite. Instead, your job is to secure map control for your team with ganks and vision. Damage levels were somewhat lower, especially
they were significantly lower, not somewhat lower. Damage levels were significantly lower. Fights would last a long time, and if you were a tanky, you were actually if you were a tank, you were actually unkillable. If you were tanky, you were unkillable. And obviously, once AD carries got a lot of items, they would start dealing damage. But even AD carries, most of the builds that AD carries went were to be more unkillable themselves. Like, it seems like that's what more people wanted in general, is that AD carries don't want to get one shot. Like, a lot of players would rather just deal slightly less damage and actually not be one-shottable. So they don't want a one-shot, but they also don't want to get one shot. And when you would like rush a BT first item and build Triforce on a lot of carries, that would kind of be more the identity. I mean, there was a whole meta where AD carries would go Wriggle's Lantern, which was supposed to be a jungle item, and the proc of the Wriggle's Lantern was that it would execute a minion or a monster, or do like 600 damage to a minion or a monster every like 25% chance or something, like every fourth attack. And this item gave you lifesteal, armor, and damage as the main stats. And that's why it was supposed to be like a Shaco item, a Lee Sin item, whatever, in the jungle. But it turned out to just be a really good AD carry item. So AD carries used to go 3 Doran's Blade and Wriggle's Lantern in high-rated pro play games. Like in the best games possible. That was just the OP build. It started from a player called Genja, who played for Moscow 5. And it went on to be called the Genja build, bro. That type of stuff was actually so cool, I thought.
Especially early game and teamfights were longer. Laning phases were more about efficient trading and less about all-ins as a result of the lower early damage.
Old Yorick!
The laning phase
That
felt
champ was
more like
shit.
a good game of chess and less like a Street Fighter match. ADC was weaker early game, but it was a scaling monster at 3+ items. The feeling of having agency on the outcome of the game was much higher because you knew every
Oh,
CS
Genja! It's Genja! We just talked about Genja!
that you got was
Not pre-watched.
one step closer to your huge power spike. And finally,
Genja 007. That must have not been the real Genja, because that's
you
some
knew every
pretty good
CS that
English.
you got was one
He would never type like this. Genja would never type like this.
step closer to your
Fanboy.
huge power spike. And finally, the champion balance did not hold up.
It's classic.
With everyone being so much better at the
Bro,
game
that's so fun. People are like, oh man, that's so
than
cool.
they were in 2011, certain champions like Lee
Oh,
Sin
that's
was
Wriggle's Lantern.
super
That's the
OP.
item I was just
He
talking
was
about right
so
here.
far ahead of
Oh,
every
it's
other
so
jungler
beautiful.
that it just wasn't even a contest. There was also some items like Deathfire Grasp, which were insanely powerful, to the point where people just started making lobbies where the item was banned. If you weren't around back then, Deathfire Grasp was an item that originally built out of Kage's Lucky Pick and Fiendish Codex. If you were playing
Kage's Lucky Pick was a gold per 10 AP item. So gold generation used to just be way worse in the game. It was just harder to gain gold because you didn't get as much passive gold. The passive gold gain was way down. So generally people would build gold per 10 items to be able to still scale while being able to, roam around the map and play the game and generate gold. So you had Kage's Lucky Pick. You also had Heart of Gold. I think Avarice Blade at some point did that. It was Avarice Blade, Kage's Lucky Pick, Heart of Gold, and Philosopher's Stone. Those were the items.
playing
We're in
Veigar, for
draft?
example, and you total of 55% of someone. If you were playing Veigar, for example, and you got to 1000 AP, you'd be doing a total of 55% of someone's max health with a point-and-click item on a 1-minute cooldown.
Yeah.
This even led to the community and devs discussing light balance changes. They didn't know this at the time, but they wouldn't even have the chance to.
All
When
right,
ChronoShift
Riot,
was
get in
initially
there.
announced, a writer left a bit of a foreboding message for the developers. Hijacking to say, please don't do this. We have a very simple and easy to read policy around developing products around Riot Games. Please read the legal jibber jabber, yes that's what it's called, and the policies on developer.riotgames.com. Riot Gene. The relevant parts of the policies that he was referring to, but please don't take any part of our IP, e.g. character appearance, abilities, maps, icons, items, etc. and use it in a game or app. Despite this comment, the project carried on for almost exactly a year, from March 20, 2020 until April 20, 2021. That's the
420,
day that
bro.
the lead of
420. They really nuked this shit on 420? That's
the
fucked up.
ChronoShift project received one of the most infamous messages in League of Legends history. Hi, Zed here from the Riot Games security team. I'm sure you can probably imagine why we might be reaching out to you, but in the interest of keeping things brief, we need to talk. I see you're on Discord now, shall we? The Riot
That shit seems scary, bro. I don't know, man. I hate getting messages from Riot. Whenever I get an email from Riot, I'm always expecting some bad shit is happening. I'm like, my heart sinks every time they reach out to me.
Game's legal team isn't super thrilled about your project, unfortunately, and is looking for a way to come to a mutually acceptable end to it. The courts are always an option, but it's long and messy.
Oh man, it's such like a disgusting way to go about it. Like, come on, bro. They aren't super thrilled about your project. I hate reading it. I hate reading it so much. The Riot Games legal team isn't super thrilled about your project, unfortunately, and is looking for a way to come to a mutually acceptable end to it. The courts are always an option, but... The courts are always an option, but it's long and messy, so we thought we'd do some outreach to see if we could work together to prevent everyone the trouble. So what's preventing everyone the trouble? Just killing it? That's what they want?
It's long and messy, so we thought we'd do some outreach to see if we can work
It's
together.
just like so like passive. It's like come here, little buddy. Let me just like we can talk about the legal jibber jabber if you want, but like let's get down there. We're not super thrilled about this. This isn't like the best thing we've ever encountered, and you know we could go to the courts. It's just the vibe of it is so like scummy, bro. It's so scummy. I hate this shit, man. I hate it so much. I'm also mega triggered because I just get these. This is like pretty much how they tell me that I'm gonna get fucking banned for a year of pro play or a year of co-streaming or whatever. I just get messages like this, right?
Everyone the trouble. Lithendrin was in the middle of getting set up.
And then you talk to them and then you're like, so what did I do? Like, can you just tell me what I did wrong that made you make this decision? Can't really get into it, you know? But let's be honest, Dom. You know what you did wrong. Like, come on, Dom. We all know who you are. You probably deserve this, right? Nice, man.
Work, but nevertheless was still happy to discuss the project. I admire that.
Yeah, of course, it's just a veiled threat.
But I'll be real with you, that's making me think like you don't have a ton of interest in cooperating. At the end of the day, that's fine, but I'd urge you to give us some credit. We archived all your messages at the end of the day, but I'll be real with you, that's making me think...
Or to cleanse your channels, but I'll be real with you, that's making me think you don't have a ton of interest in cooperating.
You don't have a ton of interest in cooperating. At the end of the day, that's fine, but I'd urge you to give us some credit. We archived all your messages long before you nuked the channel.
Nice.
You can delete the private channels too, if you'd like. You know, mod chat, backend to do, game issues archived, old videos, etc. But I'd prefer you didn't, since it really won't do you any good anyway. You've obviously put a lot of work into ChronoShift, but I assure you that the Chrono Break is coming.
Bro, why did you have to talk like this? These are real messages, right? These are real messages. That's what they said. This is crazy, bro.
It was hard for anyone to believe that an actual representative of Riot Games...
Oh my god, what a piece of shit, bro. Oh man, what a piece of fucking shit. This guy still work there? Am I gonna get fucking banned for saying this? Riot Zed. Just, it comes off as like some guy from the mafia coming to your store and extorting you. And just saying, hey, yeah, pay up or the boss isn't gonna like it.
Speaking on behalf of the
like, come on, man. This guy is a literal fucking supervillain.
Company in charge of the biggest game in the world at the time would conduct themselves like this.
Me personally, as you guys know, I've worked with Riot a couple of times. I've modeled for them. What I said immediately when I saw all of this was, there's no fucking way.
Really?
There's no way that...
Wait, really? To me, that's like right up their alley. To me, that is actually, I would be like, yeah, I expect it. I mean, maybe obviously I'm biased because I've had such a horrible relationship with Riot over the years. Like my relationship with Riot has just been pathetically bad on both ends. Like, yeah, I mean, they don't like me. I don't like them. It is what it is. So I'm extremely used to this type of discussion. This is pretty much the same way Jason Katz would talk to me when he banned me in season 2. This is essentially the same exact thing. So is it really not a Rioter? I'd be very surprised.
This is actually Riot. How is Riot going to send their most angsty edgelord teenage son with the least amount of professionalism to cease and desist an entire project?
I appreciate the effort, but you can dispense with the scare tactics.
Yeah.
Understood, and I appreciate that you're taking the time to speak with me, but let's not try to work around each other. If it was scare tactics Riot wanted, you wouldn't be speaking to me. The Rioter then laid
out... we'd send Polly. We'd send Polly to your place of work. You'd be lucky. You'd be lucky to be dead. You'd be lucky if that's what they chose. You know, the real torture is when they hit you with 2 in the spine, and you have to live the rest of your life as a paraplegic.
At the company's demands, one of the other developers who worked on the ChronoShift team has had their name redacted from the original message. Hand over the ChronoShift.dev website to us, hand over all source code, tell us all identifiable information you shared with, and what identifiable information he shared with you. Not necessarily required, but I'd be curious to know how you and broke down the workload. Give me a moment to confer with... Sure, but for what it's worth, it is my understanding that there isn't really anything to the legal strategy you referred to in the informational channel. With respect, sir, I'd appreciate if you could turn off the Scare Script Kitty script with me. I am willing to cooperate, but I find this sort of attempted browbeating annoying. The conversation didn't seem to
Bro, I f with this guy. I f with this guy. What is this guy up
proving
to?
fruitful for either party. Lithendren and the ChronoShift team had gone through extensive talks with lawyers. They were convinced that they hadn't broken any laws. They weren't distributing any Riot assets. If someone wanted to play ChronoShift, they'd have to download files from the CDN that Riot themselves were hosting. I would appreciate to know exactly what you intend to accuse us of. As you've clearly been lurking our channels, you must know the great lengths we've gone through to avoid distributing your materials except via channels you already provide. That is correct. Till now, I've said give this or we will sue. That's the offer. Give me what I'm looking for and we won't sue. Refuse and we will. The ironic twist is that in order to see hidden channels on the ChronoShift Discord server, Zed used an add-on that broke Discord's terms of service. Here's my counteroffer. I cut ties with this project, and I tell to shut it down immediately. I can't compel him to do anything though, that's on you. I don't control the website, and I don't want to rat on other people. If you know who they are already, you can threaten him too. Otherwise, feel free to serve me. I wish I could say it's been a pleasure. This conversation was so unprofessional from the side of Riot that when the screenshots were first released to the public, most people thought it was a hoax.
But apparently, news came out today that this was real.
Really? People, I guess people just don't work with Riot often. I guess that's what it is. Because, like, bro, you should have literally seen the disgusting shit that Jason Katz used to fucking message me. I would like literally my whole life. Like, I even said this, bro. My whole life was like actually ruined by when I was banned in season 2. Like, not only was it bullshit the way they went about the ban, that like, oh, you got 7 accounts. I didn't get 7 accounts banned. I had 1 account, right? It was the account that I was high rated on the entire time. I had other accounts that I had made under my name. When I was trying to make a website because I wanted to have the accounts under my name so I could play on them and I could not get banned. And then when I didn't end up going through with that, the people that leveled those accounts, they just got to fucking keep them, right? When I talked to Jason Katz, like, he would tell me, like, I was like, okay, bro, I'll do everything. He would send these little like carrots in front of me where he would be like, he had a carrot with a stick, right? And he'd be like, Dom, if you're really good, if you're a good boy for 6 months, we'll unban you after 6 months and you can play in Summer Split. I'm like, thank God. Because at that point, I had no income. If I wasn't playing professional league, I had 0 income. I was saved by Team Liquid at the time, Curse, Big Steve, and the fact that I had friends within that team that knew I was a good player and knew I was going to be an LCS the next year as soon as I was unbanned, and like moved me in and allowed me to have a place to stay. Like, I was able to get groceries for free. Like, they essentially allowed me to live for free while I served my ban to Riot. So I did this for like 6 fucking months. And then afterwards, it's like, I'd be like, okay, 6 months, completely clean. You know, like, obviously, I didn't say one bad thing, of course, because the idea was if I said one bad thing, then I would just stay banned. And I'm like, okay, my number one thing is to get unbanned. So don't say anything bad for 6 months. So 6 months of just like grinding. Even with Curse, I started playing a different role. I was going to role swap to support because Sane was like the jungler for the team and his contract was for the rest of the year. So I was going to play support for that team as well. So I spent 2 months learning support. I was like either doing with Cop or I used to do it with Apollo, Wiz Fujin at the time. This is before he was a pro player. I just met him in solo queue. I started like playing a lot of games with AD carries and just getting used to the support role. And then after like all of this for 6 months, I'm like, all right, Mr. Katz, I did everything that I could. Like, let me please play in an LCS in 2013. I didn't even say that. It was literally like Big Steve went to Riot, and then when I said I was like, hopefully, like hopefully we can, you know, work on unbanning me for 2013 summer. And his response was like, honestly, me doing this for you is on the low end of my is one of the last things on my priority list. He said some shit like this. Honestly, me trying to get you unbanned is the last thing on my priority list. Like, he just said this to me. I'm like, okay, nice, bro. I'll just fucking kill myself then. Like, it was so insane, bro. And then afterwards, after I got unbanned, they like sent a crew to like the Curse house for me to do a video where I would like thank Riot, which I didn't end up doing, where I would thank Riot for allowing me to be unbanned and helping me change my behavior. Thank you, Riot. You guys gave me a position where I could become a better person. Glory to Riot Games. Like, it was so insane, bro. That was my experience with them. This was like 13 years ago. Obviously, I still have a grudge, right? This was like literally one of the worst periods of time. Actually, it was 12 years ago at this point. It was literally the worst period of time in my entire life. Like, when I say I was thinking about killing myself, no, like, I legitimately was thinking about committing suicide because I thought my life was over. I actually thought that my life was completely over because of everything that was happening. You know, I'm like, nice, I dropped out of college. I don't have any fucking money. Like, I put all my time into this. This is fucking gone. Where am I gonna fucking stay? If I go back into college, I have to pay for that shit. It was doomed, bro. I thought my life was fucking doomed, and then they just give me like responses like this. It was almost like they were trying to make me as depressed as possible on purpose to see like if I would break. That's how it fucking felt, bro. This guy was such an asshole, man. Jason Katz. This guy was such a fucking asshole. Even the way he talked, like there was just this like pompous like air that he had about him where, I mean, this condescending air, I guess you could say, where everyone was beneath him. It's like, yeah, okay, what's your name? Yeah, Iwdominate. Yeah, the reason we're talking to you is because you're banned. All right, yeah, we don't really care. Like, bro, honestly, you think I'm gonna give a fuck about unbanning you? Like, come on, man.
Lethendrin released a statement on behalf of the ChronoShift team explaining their side of the story.
Actually
Today,
insane.
Riot Games' security department.
So when I see stuff like this, I would have just accepted. Like, think about the Riot Sanjuro stuff with Tyler 1, where like this guy in like a fucking public Discord is just calling him a homunculus. You remember that? Like, this is just like how a lot of these people have acted.
And this
is right up their alley.
Handing over our code.
That shit is fucking insane.
And website to them. To our best knowledge, and the assessment of lawyers specialized in IT copyright we talked the project over with, we haven't done anything illegal. ChronoShift has not interacted with the live game or live game accounts in any way, shape, or form.
Yep.
This project has always been about the preservation of the early seasons of League that cannot be experienced anymore.
And you get so far, and now you're like, so these people that love League of Legends, that are trying to bring an experience that people desire to more people that have maybe not played your game in a while, instead of working with them, cooperate, it's scare tactics, it's threatening to sue, it's the standard thing.
Capsule for something long gone that people still express a lot of interest in to this day. Shortly after ChronoShift had been shut down, Riot took down their CDN without any official statements. 9 years of history vanished into thin air. Its only remaining trace belongs to the few members of the community who created backups for personal reasons. Another team wanting to replicate ChronoShift's efforts would have a much more difficult road ahead of them. Right now, ChronoShift and any other possibilities of a classic League server remain a distant fantasy, but the team behind ChronoShift still lives on. Over the past few years, they've been developing their own MOBA from scratch, called Syndicate of Souls. Their aim is to capture the feeling that early League had, and early previews have been met with overwhelmingly positive feedback. Two different sides to the same coin. On one side, a project destroyed, never able to live long enough to see its full potential. On the other side, a new project, born from the ashes of ChronoShift. An idea that may never have been realized if not for the persistence of Lethendrin and the rest of the developers.
Crazy, man. I would have played the fuck out of that. League Classic, that sounds amazing. And imagine also just the content that you'd get out of League Classic. That's a really good video. I'm going to subscribe to this guy. Like the video as well. How Riot destroyed League Classic. I'll post it in the chat if anyone wants to watch the video themselves if they missed the beginning of it. But yeah, that's a really good video. I really liked it.